Good morning, everyone. Let me ask you something. Have you ever looked at someone crushing it in life and wondered what's going on in their head? Like, what are they thinking that's different from the rest of us? Let me tell you, it's not just about IQ, talent, or luck. It's about how they think. And today, I want to share with you 4 ways successful people think differently. These aren't just habits, they're mental frameworks. And once you adopt them, everything shifts. 1. Clarity is the power switch. The most successful people in the world don't just wake up and hope the day goes well. They decide how it will go. They know exactly what they want, who they want to become, and why it matters. They don't drift, they direct. If you're unclear, you're unmotivated. But the moment you get clarity, energy follows, confidence follows, momentum follows. So if you want to think like a high performer, ask yourself every day, what do I want? Why does it matter? And how do I want to show up today? 2. They think in possibility, not probability. Here's the truth. Successful people don't care what the odds are. They don't wait for permission. They create the path. While others say, that's not likely, they say, what if it is? They think in terms of potential, not past results. They've trained their minds to believe that obstacles are opportunities and limitations are illusions. So I challenge you, next time doubt shows up, ask, what's the best that could happen? 3. They manage their energy, not just their time. Let's be real. Anyone can fill a calendar. But not everyone can bring full presence, power, and purpose to what's on it. Successful people guard their energy like gold. They say no to distraction. They don't just schedule tasks. They schedule recovery. They move, they breathe, they align before they attack the to-do list, because they know success isn't about hustle, it's about harmony. So ask yourself, is what I'm doing right now energizing me or draining me? And adjust. Protect your spark. That's where your power lies. 4. They think legacy, not just lifestyle. Finally, this is big. Successful people don't think in terms of income. They think in terms of impact. They ask, will this matter? Will it help others? Will I be proud of this when I'm 80? They know that real success isn't measured in money, likes, or titles. It's measured in meaning. They live and lead from purpose, and that shifts everything. So when you're making decisions, ask, what would my future self thank me for? Because that's the mindset that builds a legacy. Final words, look, you don't need a new degree, a lucky break, or more time in the day. You need a new level of thinking, clarity, possibility, energy, legacy. That's the mindset of success. And the best part, you can start thinking that way today. So let's stop living small and start thinking like the person we're meant to become. Thank you. Success doesn't begin with hustle. It doesn't begin with strategy. It doesn't even begin with talent. It begins with clarity. Clarity is the power switch. It's the spark that lights the fire of purpose. You can have all the ambition in the world, but without clarity, you're just busy, not effective. You're in motion, but not making progress. Successful people know this, and that's why they're obsessive about getting clear. Clear about who they are, what they want, where they're going, and why it all matters. Most people live reactively. They wake up and fall into their day. Their thoughts are random. Their emotions are dictated by what shows up in their inbox or who comments on their posts. They're chasing urgency instead of aligning with purpose. But the highest performers think differently. They don't leave their life to chance. They lead it by design. They've made clarity a daily practice, and that's the difference. When you talk to a truly successful person, there's a level of certainty in them. Not arrogance, not ego, just this unshakable inner compass. They've taken the time to ask the hard questions. What do I really want? What kind of life do I want to live? What values matter most to me? Who do I want to become? And they answer those questions not once, but over and over again with honesty and courage. They don't just chase goals for the sake of achievement. Their goals are expressions of their values. Their actions are extensions of their identity. That kind of alignment is rare, and it's powerful. Clarity also brings emotional strength. Think about it. When you don't know what you want, every distraction is attractive. Every opportunity looks good. Every criticism hits harder. But when you do know what you want, you can say no with confidence. You can filter out the noise and focus on the few things that actually move you forward. You're not scrambling to prove yourself because you've already decided who you're going to be. That kind of mental clarity doesn't make you rigid. It makes you resilient. Here's what most people get wrong. They think clarity is something you find once and keep forever. But the truth is, clarity is a practice. It's not something you stumble into on a weekend retreat and then never revisit. It's a decision you make daily. High performers ask questions every single day to keep their mind sharp and their purpose fresh. Questions like, what's important right now? What am I avoiding that matters? Who do I need to be today to live in alignment with my future? They don't wait for life to give them meaning. They create it intentionally. And it's not just about goals. It's about emotions. Successful people get clear not only on what they want, but on how they want to feel. They don't just say, I want to hit a target. They say, I want to feel energized, fulfilled, connected, joyful while I pursue it. That emotional clarity changes the entire game. It prevents burnout. It creates a deeper sense of motivation because when you're clear about the experience you're chasing, not just the outcome, you build a life, not just a resume. Clarity also creates momentum because here's the deal. When you're clear, you act faster. You stop overthinking. You stop questioning yourself. You stop comparing, and you start moving. You stop hesitating on decisions because you've already defined your criteria. You stop bouncing between options because you've already chosen your direction. That mental freedom, that speed, that confidence, it all comes from clarity. If you're feeling stuck right now, if you're overwhelmed or uncertain, the first thing to do isn't to take more action. It's to pause and get clear, get still, reflect, journal, ask yourself the questions that matter, strip away what doesn't, because clarity is not about knowing everything. It's about knowing the next right step. You don't need a 10-year plan. You need to know who you want to be when your head hits the pillow tonight. That kind of clarity grounds you. It gives you strength. And from there, you can build anything. So if there's one mindset shift that can change your life faster than anything else, it's this: don't seek progress before clarity. Don't chase success until you define what success really means to you. Because when you're clear, truly clear, you don't just move faster, you move in the right direction. And that's when success becomes not just possible, but inevitable. One of the most radical mindset shifts that separates successful people from everyone else is that they think in terms of possibility, not probability. While most people are calculating odds and looking for guarantees, successful people are moving forward fueled by vision, not by permission. They don't wait for everything to be proven or perfect before they act. They lean into belief. They trust the idea that just because something hasn't been done before doesn't mean it can't be done by them. That's the foundation of extraordinary success, not predicting the future, but believing in a better one and being bold enough to create it. Average minds focus on what's likely. They ask, what usually happens? Or has anyone like me ever done this? And while that may feel like a safe way to navigate the world, it's also the surest way to stay stuck. The problem with thinking in terms of probability is that it's based on past patterns, not future potential. And if you only ever act on what's been proven, you'll never do anything groundbreaking. You'll always be reacting to what's already happened instead of leading with what could be. But successful people, they flip the script. They ask, what if it does work out? What if this crazy idea is exactly what the world needs right now? That mindset shift changes everything. When you think in possibility, you stop trying to be realistic. You start trying to be impactful. You give yourself permission to dream bigger than your current circumstances. You allow your imagination to lead your intentions. That's not wishful thinking. It's visionary thinking. Every breakthrough, every innovation, every major shift in history began with someone who had the courage to believe in possibility. They weren't the ones saying, this has a 12% chance of working. They were the ones saying, this matters so much, I'm willing to risk failure to see it through. That's how successful people think. There's also power in being the one who sees possibility when others only see limits. Think about it. How many people around you have trained themselves to expect the worst? They assume things will go wrong. They anticipate disappointment. They play small to protect themselves from pain. But the most successful people are willing to take emotional risks. They don't shut down their dreams just because someone else doesn't get it. They've built a mindset where uncertainty doesn't equal fear, it equals opportunity. Where doubt isn't a stop sign. It's a signal that they're growing. And here's the kicker. When you think in possibility, you attract new ideas. You notice opportunities others miss. You stay open, curious, creative. You take more inspired action. Because instead of waiting for the perfect plan, you trust yourself to figure it out as you go. That trust, that self-belief, it comes from choosing to believe in the future you want, not the one statistics say you're likely to have. This doesn't mean you ignore reality. It means you refuse to be limited by it. Successful people still do the work. They prepare, they strategize, they gather data. But the difference is that they don't let numbers define them. They don't confuse facts with fate. They know that history is full of people who were told it would never work, until it did. And they choose to bet on themselves anyway. That's not just mindset, it's leadership. Because when you think in possibility, you give other people permission to rise. Your belief becomes contagious. Your courage becomes an invitation. Every time you choose to pursue something that excites you, even when it scares you, you raise the bar for what's possible for everyone around you. And that ripple effect, that's real influence. So if you're waiting to feel ready, if you're waiting for proof, if you're waiting for someone else to believe in your dream first, stop. That's the old way of thinking. That's probability mindset. Instead, step into possibility. Ask bigger questions. Dream bigger dreams. Give yourself the grace to start before you're fully prepared. Because the moment you shift your thinking from what's likely to what's possible, you stop playing defense with your life and start playing offense. You stop settling for what is and start creating what could be. And that is the way successful people think. They don't live from fear. They live from vision. They don't ask what's typical. They ask what's transformational. They see the same problems everyone else sees, but they respond with hope, belief, and relentless action. That's not luck. That's not magic. That's mindset. And it's a mindset you can choose starting now. One of the most powerful shifts in the way successful people think is this. They don't just manage their time, they manage their energy. It sounds simple, but it's a complete reframe of how most people approach productivity and performance. While the majority of people obsess over calendars, to-do lists, and squeezing more into the day, successful people focus on how they're showing up to each moment. They understand that time is fixed, but energy is fluid, and that how you feel in any given moment determines how well you perform. In other words, they don't just ask, how can I get more done? They ask, how can I bring more of my best self to what I do? This is such a crucial difference because time is a limited resource. No matter who you are, you only get 24 hours in a day. But energy, that's something you can renew, generate, and protect. Successful people understand this, and they treat their energy like currency. They know that if their mind is scattered, their emotions are drained, or their body is fatigued, it doesn't matter how many hours they have. They won't be effective. So they build habits that support their energy first, knowing that performance follows presence. Think about it. We've all had days when we technically had time, but we were mentally or emotionally unavailable. The hours were there, but we couldn't focus, we couldn't create, we couldn't connect. Why? Because our energy was off. High performers don't let that become their default state. They design their days around things that replenish them, not just routines of action, but rituals of alignment. That might mean waking up earlier to meditate, moving their body before meetings, unplugging between deep work sessions, or taking time each week to reconnect with their why. These aren't luxuries to them, they're necessities. Because they know the quality of their output depends on the quality of their input. The average person will burn out trying to squeeze more into their schedule. The successful person will slow down long enough to recharge, reset, and return with power. That's not weakness, that's wisdom. Energy management isn't about doing less. It's about doing what matters most with more intention, more clarity, and more consistency. It's about protecting your mind from the noise, your emotions from the drama, and your body from the crash. It's about living in a way that keeps your fire lit, not just for a day, but for the long haul. One of the key ways successful people manage their energy is by being extremely intentional with their focus. They know that every distraction, every unnecessary decision, every toxic interaction has a cost, so they create boundaries around their attention. They say no more often. They delegate what drains them. They automate what doesn't need their genius, and they lean into what lights them up. That kind of clarity isn't rigid, it's liberating. It frees them from the trap of being busy without being fulfilled. It gives them room to breathe and space to think, and it ensures that when they show up to the work, they're not just physically present, they're mentally sharp and emotionally engaged. Successful people also have a strong connection to purpose, and that alone is a massive source of energy. When you know why you're doing something, when the outcome matters deeply to you, you naturally access a different level of drive. You don't need external motivation. You have internal meaning, and that meaning fuels you on the hard days. It gives you a second wind when others are giving up. It pulls you forward when comfort tempts you to coast. That's what purpose does. It activates a deeper source of energy than caffeine or hype ever could. Another critical factor is recovery. Most people undervalue you rest because they associate it with laziness, but successful people see recovery as strategy. They understand that rest is what allows them to go harder, longer, and more effectively. They don't wait until they're exhausted to rest. They build rest into their rhythm. They take time off not as an escape from work, but as an investment in their ability to perform at their highest level. And when they're on, they're fully on because they're not running on fumes, they're running on fuel. At the end of the day, it's not about doing everything. It's about doing the right things with the right energy in the right mindset. That's how successful people operate. They don't let the clock control them, they control their state. They know that when they protect their energy, they protect their potential, and that's not just smart, that's essential. Because the best version of you doesn't come from burnout. It comes from alignment. It comes from intention. It comes from the power of being energized, focused, and fully alive in your own life. There's a defining shift in the way truly successful people think, and it's this: they think legacy, not just lifestyle. While the world around them obsesses over short-term gains, instant gratification, and the next big comfort, successful people are focused on something far deeper. They're not just chasing what looks good. They're building something that lasts. Lifestyle is about now. Legacy is about forever. And the people who leave a lasting mark on the world understand that success isn't just about what you get. It's about who you become and what you give. When you think lifestyle, your decisions revolve around convenience, appearances, and temporary highs. You ask, what's fun? What's easy? What looks good right now? And while there's nothing wrong with enjoying life, the danger comes when all your choices are made in service of the moment rather than the mission. That's where many people get stuck. They build their life around pleasure, but not purpose. They live on autopilot, checking boxes and chasing trends, but they never stop to ask if it's all actually adding up to something meaningful. But successful people, real leaders, real change makers, they think on a different level. They ask bigger questions. Questions like, will this matter in 5 years? Is this aligned with my values? Will I be proud of this decision when I look back decades from now? They view their life through a wider lens. They understand that true fulfillment doesn't come from accumulation. It comes from contribution. They're not just living for the weekend or the next vacation. They're building a life that's aligned with their soul, a life that reflects their highest potential. Thinking in terms of legacy means you stop living just for comfort, and you start living with conviction. You make decisions not based on what's popular, but on what's principled. It means you hold yourself to a higher standard, not because someone's watching, but because you know the impact you're creating will outlive you. That kind of thinking requires courage. It requires sacrifice. It requires vision, but the payoff is enormous, because when you build from that place, your life starts to carry weight. Your days become more than a checklist. They become a contribution to something larger than yourself. People who think in legacy don't play the comparison game. They're not obsessed with how they rank against others. They're focused on how true they're being to their own path. They're not in it to impress. They're in it to impact. They understand that success without significance is empty. You can have the car, the house, the accolades, and still feel deeply unfulfilled if your life doesn't reflect your deeper values. So they keep asking themselves, am I building a life I respect? Am I leading in a way that uplifts others? Am I creating something that matters? Legacy thinkers also play the long game. They don't need instant applause because they're planting seeds that might take years to grow. They're okay being misunderstood now if it means being remembered later for something meaningful. They're not chasing trends, they're setting them. They know that real influence takes time, and they're patient enough, passionate enough, and persistent enough to see it through. That's why when you meet someone like this, you feel their presence. There's a depth to how they speak, a purpose behind what they do, a quiet power in how they live, and it's not just about work. It's about who they are when no one's watching. It's about how they treat people, how they show up for their family, how they handle adversity, how they serve their community. Legacy isn't a project, it's a way of life. It's built in the small moments, the daily choices, the unseen efforts. It's built when no one's clapping. It's built in how they carry themselves with integrity, how they lead with love, how they stay committed to something greater than comfort. And here's the beautiful part. Anyone can start thinking this way. You don't need to be rich, famous, or wildly successful by the world's standards to build a legacy. You just need to start living with intention. Ask yourself, what do I want to be remembered for? Not what people say about you, but what they feel because of the way you lived. That's your real legacy, and the moment you start aligning your life with that deeper purpose, everything changes. Your work gains meaning, your relationships deepen, your confidence grows, because you're no longer living by default. You're living by design. Successful people don't wait until the end of their life to think about legacy. They think about it now, every single day, and that's why their lives shine. Not because they're chasing applause, but because they're building something that will echo long after they're gone. That's not just success, that's significance, and that's the mindset that truly lasts.